What's up, everybody? It's your girl, Miss Crystal Marie from Barrio Love Oldies, and you're tuning into episode number 23 with none other than the one and only Waxvillain. What's up, Waxvillain?
Thank you so
Welcome.
much for having me. I'm super happy to be here. Episode number 23. That's a special number.
It's always happens like that. Do you know that?
Some things just work out that way.
Yeah, no, it has been like I want to say about 95% of my guests, like whatever episode they land on.
Yeah,
That number is like special to them. So that's confirmation to me. Like when I hear that, like this was supposed to happen, you know?
I love that. I love
So
that.
yeah. Well, thank you so much for being here. You're my first video interview.
That's super exciting. That's super exciting.
Yes. Yes. Thank you for well, actually the idea was yours. So thank you so much for encouraging me to do this because I would probably gone through with it. So thank you so much.
Yeah.
Um So let's go ahead and get right into the interview.
Yeah.
Where are you from, born and raised?
So I'm from Seattle, Washington. I was technically born in Bethesda, Maryland, but I grew up in upstate New York. And then I want to say when I finished college, I put my life into my car and I drove out to Seattle, Washington, and the
Wow.
rest is history. Yeah.
What made you drive out there?
So I my friends were always older than me, like by a year,
Mhm.
especially in college. And so I realized that when I graduated, if I stayed in Albany, I would do the same thing with the same people. And that wasn't the path that I wanted to go on. I wanted to
Mhm.
kind of start that next chapter of life. And to me, that meant like career. And so I want to say I left like at the end of the summer. It was hard to say goodbye to my mother and my grandmother because they're super important to me. And Yeah, I drove out. There was no like maps on phone. How I made it across the country in a car by myself, I have no idea, but I did it. And it was a good experience. So yeah, I've been here, and I'm still here. So yeah, I love Seattle.
That's awesome. What's the weather like over there?
So right now I would say it's chilly in the morning, it's chilly in the afternoon and even at evening.
Wow.
Little darker, little gray, but that's Washington for you.
We're still experiencing 112, 113-degree
Wow, that's
weather
crazy.
on.
We took the air conditioner out like a month ago.
Yeah, it's been rough, especially because I have a son who's in football. So every
Oh
weekend,
wow, okay, yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, so every weekend we're at the football games. And that's why I was like, I'm so sunburned. I didn't even notice because on the weekend they're playing in 113, 112-degree
Wow.
weather. Yeah.
That's too hot to me, especially for the little ones, you know?
Yeah, that's like SoCal weather, where I'm from. But that's awesome. So what was your upbringing like? Like where did what was it like growing up in your home and your environment? What was that like?
Yeah, so my upbringing, I think I had a super rich upbringing. I was raised by my mother and my grandmother. There was no father figure in my life. I had a gang of aunts that were always very supportive, but I grew up in I would say Schenectady. The actual town is Niskayuna, and I was just a kid that was into sports, playing with toys and things like that. But I always liked the music that my mother would play, whether it was in the car or in her room, and I can remember just being a kid and going up, and I remember like finding this radio station that's in a town maybe about an hour away called Amsterdam, and there was this radio station out there that would play oldies, and I didn't really know the music, but I just remember listening to that and like making tapes off her like rectangular block stereo with the receiver, the CD player, the tape deck, the tuner, and all
Yeah.
that. And so I was just moved by music at a young age. I think also being an only child, and spending time in my room, it was quiet, right? And I was always fine by myself, but I always loved to have music in the background. It's just kind of like, when you're watching a movie and there's the music in the background, that's kind of always what I envision. And so, the music's always been kind of like a friend, if you will.
Yeah. What was Wax feeling like when you were like a young kid growing up with your
Oh,
grandma and your mom?
I was probably just like a stupid boy, but I was. very much a mama's boy. I was into sports and sneakers. Like
Mm.
my mom always jokes and says that I was an easy kid because as long as I had hoop shoes, a ball, and there was a court or a gym, that's
You
where
were
I was going to
good.
be. So
Yeah.
like Thursday, Friday nights, I remember in like middle school, before there was high school basketball, they would like drop me off at like a community gym and I would play till 10 or 11 o'clock and we would go home. And my mother and grandmother were always really, really supportive of whatever it was that I was doing. And so basketball was my first love. If you could
Mm.
imagine, you see what I do with like the music and stuff. Imagine that with basketball. So I was always playing, going to camps, and I was playing on competitive teams. It wasn't just simply like recreation basketball on a Saturday where everyone gets a trophy. But middle school, high school, if I wasn't playing like on a Friday night, it was the three of us, my mother, my grandmother, and I, and we would go watch other high school basketball games because in the summer
Mm.
I would play AAU and my teammates were from kind of all over the area. So I'd want to go to watch, East Greenbush play one night, maybe CBA the other night. And so I was easy, never in trouble or anything like that. And I think that those were really special times because we all loved basketball. And then we'd probably come home and like, catch the end of a basketball game on TV. So that's really what I was about. I think around like I remember when CDs came out and I thought it was a big deal. I remember when I bought like my first couple CDs. Again, not soul related, really just kind of what I was seeing on MTV or
Yeah.
BET at the time, because those were the ways that I got to explore and experience music. Then, of course, it was The Source. The Source magazine is
Yeah.
kind of that cue for new music. And
Yeah.
I remember every Tuesday, new music would come out at the music store. We had Media Play, and I'd always be there Tuesday to get the new music. I can remember the first two cassette tapes I bought, and it's funny because I always think back to like this decision. I remember, I probably had like 20 bucks in my pocket, and I was like, man, I can get like one tape, or I could get a bunch of singles. And for whatever reason, these two singles always kind of stood out to me. But it was LL Cool J, Pink Cookies in a Plastic Bag, and it
Okay.
was Run DMC, Down with the King.
Yeah.
And I'd always have those tapes in my Walkman, and I'd be riding on my bike to school. And that was just kind of how I really got into music and slowly started to hip hop was kind of the mainstay for me. And I think, in retrospect, looking back, it wasn't really ever like the lyrics that moved me. Like I like lyrics, but that wasn't the thing. It was more the beat. And what
Mm.
I would learn to really find out was it was the samples they were using. That was what I gravitated towards. You have to
Mhm.
think hip hop back then, I was really into like golden era 90s East Coast stuff. So very sample heavy, dirty drums. And I think that would later be the platform that when I started making beats, in my I don't know. I think it was like late 20s. I bought like a drum pad. I bought records before I had a turntable, and that was my introduction to records there. But I am a record collector from the lens of a beat maker. There was never like one genre. I was just looking for obscure stuff. Or I think anybody that gets into beat making, you can listen to something and you only need to hear the first few seconds of it.
Right.
And so my ear has always been tuned to that first thing that grabs me, whether it's punchy drums, punchy horns, or
Yeah.
perhaps a soaring falsetto that when you speed up, it kind of has that like chipmunk voice sound. And that was also really popular in the early 2000s. So that was kind of my path into music. I did like other genres, but I would say it was more like listen to those in the closet, if you will,
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. You were growing up in your home. I want to like rewind a little bit back
Yeah.
to like your, little Waxvillain. In your home, was your mom and your grandma into music? Like, did you grow up like listening to music in your home or?
No. So music was not something that was like played like in the house, in the living room. What I remember my grandma saying, specifically to like hip hop was they're just repeating themselves. They're just saying the same things over and over again. As a kid, like it doesn't resonate with you. My mother was
Yeah.
always supportive of music, and I had like one of those remember the like all-in-one stereos where the speakers
Yeah.
came together and you could like
Uh-huh.
disconnect them. So
Yeah.
I had that. And the funny thing that I always think about is when my mother would enter the room, I would always stop the music because parental advisory, the lyrics,
Yeah.
I don't know what it was. I just didn't want to play that music in front of my mom. It was kind of like a respect thing.
That's
Um,
awesome.
but my mother was always supportive. Like I said, she was always getting me. I'd be like, "Ma, pick me up like Snoop Dogg." My mother bought me the Chronic. Like I think it was
Really?
yeah, it was the summer after I had finished sixth grade. And
Yeah.
the story behind this is, I remember like coming out the side door, and there were like some cool kids or whatever, like the ones that were kind of like maybe trouble, right? And I remember seeing this one classmate, he got into like some high schooler's car and they were playing this song with Snoop Dogg, and it was actually 187. I didn't know what it was. I just knew I heard Snoop. And so I said, "Oh, the Chronic, it's got to be on there." So I was like heartbroken. I put this cassette tape in my mom's car. I'm listening to it, waiting to find this song. There, every curse word in the book,
Yeah.
and I'm just like bearing this in the passenger side while my mother drives. But yeah, my mother bought me the Chronic when I was in sixth grade. And so when you get the Chronic as like your first tape from your mom, like everything after that's easy. There was
Yeah.
no blocking.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
Yeah.
so cool. Like she reminds me of like super supportive mom. Like, that's so cool. So you grew up playing basketball. Did
Yeah.
you like were you like in high school? Like did you have scouts looking at you? Is this something that you wanted to pursue like basketball or
Yeah. So I played competitively. I was good in high school. I ended up going to the College of St. Rose, and
wow.
I tried to walk onto the team. And I remember practicing with them for like the first 3 months of my freshman year in college.
Hmm.
And I was certain that I was going to make the team as a walk-on. But I didn't. And I think that, when you are going to college, you're living on campus, there's all these things that I was exposed to. So like I didn't drink in high school. I didn't do any of that stuff. It was just basketball, basketball, basketball. And when I was, with the team, like I was eating lunch with them, I was going out with them.
Hmm.
And I would say it was quite a commitment to practice,
Hmm.
hoping that you might make the team. And then, by sophomore year, I had tried out again, but I didn't have that same energy that I had the first year. I think because I had given everything I had when I was playing with them and trying out. And I mean, I had good hops. I was a very good shooter. I was a good passer. I think I was limited though by my height. I'm just under 6 feet, and I did my best. So once I got to sophomore year, that was when I was like, okay, we'll play rec, we'll play with our friends, but I wanted to kind of explore college life and do things that my other friends were doing, and that's kind of how it went. Yeah.
At what age did you feel that you start? Because you talk a little bit about you being into hip hop and all that stuff. But when did you start getting into the soul scene? Like at
Yeah.
what age?
So I started collecting records in the early 2000s, and we get to around, maybe, let's see here, 2015 or 2016. I was just kind of having a very woke moment, and I had made the decision to stop collecting records. At this point, I probably had maybe around 1,000 LPs, but I didn't collect 45s. And when my daughter was born, again, just kind of, there was a different motion, a different kind of energy. I was really focused on like just finding that best version of myself. And I would describe that truly as a journey. So here I am now. Maybe it's 2017, 2018. And so part of my journey, finding that best version of myself, meant getting healthy again.
Mm,
And so I found myself back in the gym, and my motivation, I always set really high goals, really, really high goals that would make people laugh, right? If I told them what they were. And so my goal was to try to make a pro-am team, a pro-am basketball team in Seattle. That was just my North Star. I knew that was something that I would have to work to. It would keep me in the gym. So every day, And I mean every day for at least 2, if not 3 hours. I was going to an LA Fitness. I was training. I was playing basketball. I was doing drills. Like going to the club for me was
Mhm.
waking up at like 8 in the morning and doing pickup games. That was my routine.
Yeah.
And the pandemic comes and the gyms close.
Wow.
So around this time, like that was like heartbreaking for me because yeah, I could play outside, but it wasn't the same. I was also going through what I thought was like some heart challenges, and that was really scary to me. So simultaneously, as all this is going on, I reconnect with a friend from high school, and his name is Jeff Walsh. He's one of my absolute best friends. He's a brother. He actually co-hosted like the first 30 Waxvillain, and well, it was what do we call it? Two gentlemen and a turntable. That was the first live stream that I had done, but I remember driving in the whip. I was riding through the city and he sent me a song and I played it. And I was like, is this available on LP? And he says, 45. I said, bro, I don't do 45s. And it was the Sacred Souls. So around this time, now mind you, I'm not collecting records. I hadn't been collecting records for years. I thought I was going to basically just educate Jeff, send him records from time to time.
Yeah.
I had no plans of doing anything further with vinyl or anything like that. And as I hear the Sacred Souls, he's introducing me to Jason Joshua. He's introducing Coal Mine Records, indie soul, funk.
Mhm.
So now I'm like, oh my God, right? And I was so moved by the music because it was a hard time for me. I was really feeling blue. Um, I had quit on myself, if I'm just being straight up honest with you, many times in life, but especially then. And so a lot of the stuff that I had done in terms of like self development, trying to find that best version of myself, it wasn't working. But I always felt good when I would hear the music. And
Mm.
the more I listened to the music, the more curious I was. So at the start of the pandemic, everybody's on social media. And I'm now getting introduced to these bands, these labels, these 45s through Instagram. And I remember having this moment. Jeff and I were like texting nonstop all day, every day. I remember having this vision. I said, I want to know more about this music, but they're only telling us the name of the band. They're showing us a mock up of a 45 and a short snippet. I
Yeah.
wanted to know why they wrote the lyrics to that. I wanted to know more about this band. I just wanted to fully immerse myself in the music. I also acknowledged that there was this awesome community of people, and I wanted to be part of that. And I just kept thinking, I had this dream. I was like, man, we can support and strengthen the indie scene by supporting artists and labels and doing things for the community. And at that time, I wasn't quite sure how I would do it. I think at that point, I was like taking pictures of records, holding them. I had a portable turntable at the time, so maybe I would record a short snippet. And it was Jeff that got me into 45s, and I would say the indie soul scene. The second really important moment is when there was a label from Seattle that I was really into, and I would DM with them, and just trying to create connections, network. And I bought some records, and he says I threw some extra goodies in. I was really hyped because this was supposed to arrive around my birthday. And I said out of the blue, I said, oh, cool, I'll unbox it. I hadn't thought about unboxing records on Instagram in any capacity. So because he sent me these extra goodies, I do this unboxing. And that is really what set things off, because after that, it was Manny and Ray from Solar Records. They were the first ones to send me a record and say, Wax, would you unbox it like you did that record? And I said, sure. I mean, this was what I was working towards at that point, was this idea to have a partnership with record labels or indie artists, because I wanted to support them. Because at the time, remember, their record stores are closed. You can't perform. Everything was online. And so I said, I can create this, this machine, this promotional machine where we'll unbox a record. And that was where I started the unboxing. Noriega follows soon after that. Industry Music Group follows after that. And now the wheels are turning, and I'm getting contacted night and day for months by artists and record labels. Will you unbox this? Will you unbox this? And so around that time, I'm thinking, what else can I do? Because once you post the record, it's it. It's flat after 72 hours, maybe 3 days tops at the time. So I said, okay, let's do interviews. And Jeff and I agreed that we were going to conduct these interviews with artists, labels. We start doing that. And the very first interview we did, we interviewed three people. We had them come on like 15 minutes, at 30 minutes, and then maybe at 45. It was Maria Sanchez. That was one of the first artists that we interviewed. Then it was Love Soul Productions. And we brought this gentleman named FOS Dave. Everybody knows FOS Dave on the scene. He's, just a very respected record collector. Also ties to Preservation Project. So that was the first one. And then after that, we had done Napoleon Demps. But that now starts unboxing, and then we have the live stream interview. The third element was the weekends, right? I knew that nothing happened Saturday and Sunday. So I had this idea to create this thing called a watch list. And I was going to make a post that had all new music, music on the way, and then records
Wow.
that were my favorite or that were really moving me at that time. So you can imagine all these records
Yes.
are being sent to me. I'm learning about all these labels, and I'm making one source for everybody that's following me now to see what's out, what's coming, who they are. And that was cool for a while. We did that, but it really got impactful because I started to invite other collectors and friends from the community. I said, hey, I want you to make a list of 10 songs that are moving you right now. Send it to me, send a picture, and I will showcase this in my monthly watch list. So now I'm asking close to
Wow.
like 5 to 7 people every month. We did it bi-weekly the first year. Then it went to monthly. Third year it remained monthly, but I retired it because I got really busy. But every month I would promote maybe 5 to 10 record collectors through the watch list. And then I would promote the music that had come out that month or previous. And so that was really powerful, I think. But I know we want to get to the soul part. And so when Noriega had reached out to me and we decided to form that partnership, it was really the start of a beautiful friendship. Mike Noriega is my North Star. There's nobody that I respect more. No matter what I do, he will always have a seat next to me. That's the kind of respect. But what I observed at this time, okay, because there's a lot of things going on. I mean, I remember when Jason Joshua and Joey Quiones, they did a cover of the Midnighters, The Town I'm From. I love that song. And I kept talking about it to Jeff, and he goes, it's a cover. I said, what's a cover? That was the moment that I realized the oldies. And I started to kind of close the focus on the music that was moving me. And so I said, oh my gosh, there are all these lost records out there. Most of them are only on 45. And I remember I found I've Cried by the Jamels on YouTube. And I'm like, oh my gosh, who are the Jamels? I've cried. Like I'm the type that when something moves me, I need to know
Yeah.
everything about it and research it. But here's
Yeah.
the thing. Um, I found next to no information. And I
Yeah.
started to learn that all the knowledge lived with the record collectors,
Yeah.
specifically the record collectors in California. And this was the pandemic, and I was noticing that these record collectors were passing away. And I said to Mike, I said, Mike, we've got to do something to preserve the culture and the history, because I knew at that point that it lived with the record collectors.
Yeah.
And so Mike and I, we decide to do this live stream. Mike Noriega presents The Vault. That was the name that I had come up with. And so you now have, Waxvillain interviewing indie artists and record labels. Now we had a live stream focused just on collectors. And so
Mm.
Mike and I would co-host that. George Miller was involved. He's kind of, I would say, like a co-host that would come on from time to time. Our first guest was Suavecito Soul. That's Rich Ramirez. And we started out doing really short, like 10, 15-minute spurts.
Yeah.
But we realized we needed more time because 15 minutes just isn't enough, and they became into hours. And so that is essentially my connection to music, I would say, kind of in my second journey with vinyl. Now I'm looking at 45s much more. I understand my focus, which is indie soul. And now I'm learning about, I'm calling them oldies, old soul records, because that's what
Yeah.
I knew it was at the time. I wasn't calling it rare soul. And so the key to all of this, the key to all of it, and my love for rare soul simply goes like this. And I have to acknowledge people right now, because one thing about me is that I don't want to fool anybody. Like, let it be known that 2020 was the year that I maybe started to have awareness to rare soul and 45s, but the very like tip of the iceberg. And so if you look at my time from 2021 to even now, I went out there and I with Mike's help found all these record collectors. And on a monthly basis, sometimes twice a month, I would have the opportunity to sit down from them virtually and interview them. So, I want to shout out Mike Noriega. I want to shout out George Miller Jr. I want to shout out Suavecito Soul, Southside Soul, Wax Major. I want to shout out Wanted Rob from Wanted Records. I want to shout out Danny Gascone. I want to shout out Sappy Soul, Miss Goldie. The list goes on. Waxvillain and my love for soul does not happen without my connection to the record collectors focused on rare soul in California. There is no community of record collectors that are soul enthusiasts like the ones in California. There's something in the air out there. I don't know what it is. I've been there, but the way that your son plays football, right? So he
Yeah.
probably has like favorite football players in the NFL that
Yeah.
he loves, right?
Yeah.
That is the same way that I acknowledge and view the record collectors
Yeah.
on the soul scene. Oh,
Same.
I also want to shout out Santana Soul too. I mean, these are my guys.
Yeah.
They have played a major part in my journey as a record collector, focusing on soul, and so I learned from them. Um, I think that there's a certain depth that is unknown to a lot of people, especially digging the records. But I was nowhere. I was nothing of the record collector, in the past 2000s until I focused on the soul, and I learned from those guys. I did my own research, and I kind of, you have to imagine I'm learning from the best on the scene.
Yeah.
Those were my mentors. That's how I
Yeah.
treated it. And so
Yeah.
as I'm doing these interviews and we're putting it on for the community, I'm learning at the same time, right? So the records I knew in 2021, and I'm thinking, oh man, I know soul. No, 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 no. I want to be brutally honest with you.
Yeah.
I did not truly find the sound of soul that I love probably until 2023. If I'm being true, brutally honest with you.
And what sound is
Um,
that? Like what? Because I feel like there's oldies is such a broad genre of music, but then I also feel like there's different type of oldies, right? Like there's different, like there's more the upbeat, there's more like the slower one. Like what are the ones that you like to pursue?
Yeah. So I would go as far as saying primary, like the spot that I'm always focused on is maybe like 69 to 73.
Mhm.
I like group soul,
Okay.
specifically males. I love like a soaring falsetto, but it's the instrumentation that I think really distinguishes the kind of soul I like from others. And I refer to it as dramatic soul because you've got these punchy horns, you've
Yeah.
got these drums that to a degree you think, man, it's almost like a marching band. Like if you think about the Diabolics, if you think about, you know, Family Connection, that sound right there, where there's that soaring harmony, there's really great drum progressions, punchy horns. I just think it's so dramatic. And those are the soul records that I primarily like. Now, I also the first I would say maybe expensive records that I bought was Rock Candy. So I love the Rock Candy 45 because it's got Alone with No Love and I Don't Think I'll Love Another. And I mean, I bought this while I was on the phone talking to Miss Goldie, being like, Miss Goldie, you think I should do this? I don't know this and that. And it just kind of started from there. Now, this record is a lot different than what I told you are the records that move me. So I like a lot. I like Northern Soul, but I don't love any. I'd say Sweet Soul first, but a particular kind of sweet soul that likely, again, 70 to 73. Those are the years that I look for. And there are times that if it's not like, something Andy, I won't even look. If it looks like it's one singer, I'll keep going because I'm really focused on the group harmony. That's
Yeah.
what I love most.
Yeah.
If you think about, so I some of the work that I did with Fraternity Music Group, those records, group soul harmony, the Egyptians, Sintown label, Four Jades, that stuff where it's just so dramatic. You can't tell whether it's like we're going to war or we're heartbroken.
Yeah.
But I think what bridges the gap is that the drums are different,
Yeah.
horns are punchy, and it reminds me of things that I would look for if I was to sample and make beats. I don't do that anymore. I don't want to, but that's what really moves me and gets me excited.
For you that you feel like, you started kind of like little later in your life to get
Oh
into
my
this
gosh,
kind of
absolutely.
music.
I will never catch up. And I think I respect that so much. And like I said, I'm honest with myself. I started so late. One of the things that I understand, one, I'm not here to compete with other record collectors.
Yeah,
Like
I
it's
feel
a race. I've always said with music, and I said this when I was making beats, music would be something that I would pick up and put down.
yeah.
And so with record collecting, this is just me on my journey exploring
Yes.
records the way I do and adding them to
Yes.
my collection. Part of the fun for me is finding records that aren't available and using my skill set to be patient, wait, and
Yeah.
find them. Now, for me as a record collector, I don't really like to buy records that aren't near mint or better. I will
Mhm.
only do VG plus if if it's a price thing, if it's a availability thing. But I do aim for near mint only. And in spending time with these collectors, oh, shout out to Louis Tunes and Nick Aguirre too. Those guys were very instrumental, especially Nick Aguirre with Soulful Things. So Nick was a huge inspiration. So Nick, I get a package one day and it's this block of Soulful Things on CDs, right?
Wow.
And so Nick has been a big part of my journey. But in studying Nick, I want to tell you something. And you said, kind of late in the game. Here's the reality. If you look at the entire collection of all the compilations of Soulful Things, and you were to try to find them, like let's say that you were on Discogs and you wanted to build a list of all the songs from his collection that you liked, more than 90%, if not more, are not available.
Mhm. Mhm.
Those records that are available, they're not going to be
Yeah.
and
Mhm.
you're going to need at least $200 to $300
Yeah.
just to get in the room to be able to buy them.
Yeah.
So there's a couple things that I realized at that point. I said, one, I need two sides. If it's going to be more than like $100, I need two sides,
Yeah.
right? It's got to be near mint or close to a VG plus. I will not buy records that have markings on the label. I don't do that stuff,
Right.
right? And I think the other thing for me was there are thousands of rare soul records that don't move me the way I want to be moved.
Right.
And so I don't collect records to things all about quantity. I have a lot of records, but I'm not about quantity. I'm about quality. So if the record doesn't move me, I'm not even paying attention to it. I don't care who's holding it. I don't care how many times I see it on the gram. That doesn't move me.
Yeah.
I'm particular and I know what I like. And so at that point, Crystal, I have to say that I could never be the best rare soul collector because I'll never go after a majority of those records. I'm only going to go after the stuff that moves me. But I don't want to do that. My whole thing about this scene, you know, it's about championing the work that was done by those that came before me, keeping their stories alive. That's why we documented like 30 plus
Yeah.
interviews with the vault and all those guests. Is about keeping their names alive and doing the things, championing tradition to a degree. And A lot of people will say, Wax, are you a purist? I am not a purist. I'll say this though, if you look at this right here, this is like one of many just totes of records. By and large, everything is OG. I'll
Yeah.
buy a reissue if I like a record but don't love it. I'll buy a reissue. Like, I'm not going to punish myself and not have something on a format that I like just because purists say it's a reissue. I,
Yeah.
I spin behind here. I do it for me and I do it for my friends. So um, I consider myself a hybrid collector. Now, when it's OVO night and I get invited out to spin, I probably spin about 10 times a year. I respect house rules. If I ever spin in California, I'll bring my originals
Yeah.
only. Like, my reissues are not the bulk of the collection. They're the ones that I'm like, oh man, I really love, the drums that open up on the carry cut on symphonical records. And I want to incorporate that into my set. I'm not going to make a set or I'm not going to collect my records for anyone else. Now, if I'm getting paid to be a purist and there's sponsorship, so be it. But I
Yeah.
collect records for me. I don't follow anyone else's trends or things like that, but I am respectful and I do respect OVO vibes. I mean, that's how it was. But here's the thing. Part of the reason that I champion the idea of being a hybrid collector is simply this. One of my goals was to bring people to this scene so that they could find the music that moved me.
Yeah.
I got into this because I was hurting and the music made me feel better. And I said, I know that there are people out there that are stuck like me,
Yeah.
that if they hear this, maybe that's going to be the thing that gets them unstuck.
Yeah.
And so I want to bring people to this scene, but I don't want them to be intimidated by the fact that, oh my God, I pay $130 for 12 months of streaming, but this 145 is $300.
Yeah.
I want them to come and I want them to be accepted. Like, if you can find some of these records even on reissue, kudos to you, because it's not
Yeah.
like they're just out there everywhere.
Yeah. Well,
Um,
that is
and
so true.
and I think that you shouldn't limit your music taste based on your pockets,
Hmm.
right? So I respect people that have reissues. I respect people that stream, and I respect people that go OVO. But I want people to come to this scene because this music is fantastic, and I want them to have awareness to the collectors that made this music known.
Yeah.
I don't know that Rare Soul exists without California and the impact that the collectors made.
Yeah.
And so that's part of it. But if we don't make it acceptable for new record collectors to have reissues, then they're just going to walk away. And
Sure.
I think that would be a travesty. I mean, at the end of the day, you're not going to see people with collections of reissues on the same bill as a Mike Noriega, as a George Miller Jr.,
Right. Right.
right? They're just not going to make it there. Like, do you know what it takes to play a full 2 hour set of
Yeah.
originals?
Yeah.
Like we're talking hundreds and
Yeah.
hundreds and hundreds of dollars
Yeah.
and time to develop the collection.
Yes.
So I say, come as yourself. It doesn't matter which format or issue you have, because at the end of the day, we all want to get those originals. And
Yeah.
when we can, we will. But in the meantime, hold on to that reissue, spin it. When you see that copy come up, put the reissue on ice, and then you have your original. So I mean, that's kind of my motto there. When it comes to being a purist, being a hybrid collector. Um, I want people to feel good like I do from the music,
Yeah.
and so I welcome everyone, from
Yeah.
all walks of life, no matter what. When I think of spinners out in a venue,
Hmm.
I always look at it like, man, look at all the good music that you're being treated to right now, whether you're
Hmm.
watching or you're a collector. Like, I'm fans of other record collectors.
Yeah. Me too.
Um, I would always go out to the Emerald City Soul Club, and I would just be kind of like a fly on the wall, listening and
Yeah.
observing and watching the record collectors the same way that people watch athletes at sporting events. Like,
Right.
these are the people that I admire, and like, props to you if you have a dope set. Props to you if you have a dope set. I like a little bit of showmanship and competitiveness in there, but at the end of the day, we're all collectively putting on for the artists of the past that
Right.
never had the opportunity to hear their music played in a club, on a
That's
radio,
it.
on a live stream, whatever it
That's
is.
it.
And so it's paying homage to the past. I mean, um, I interviewed Bobby Way. There's lots of folks that I've interviewed, but the artists from the past, like to have conversations with them. And I'm talking about in private too, not just on live stream. Like Bobby Way, I call him Uncle Bobby. Like we continue to talk. To be able to put his record on a turntable when there's 100 people in the audience, like I'm like, yeah, Bobby, like we did it, man. Like we're making a difference, and that is
Mhm.
what is so special to me about playing out. I think one of my good friends, Chris Lujan, when we were in Portland, so we did a show together, Soul Coast Showcase. It was 3 days back to back to back. I had to like go to the bathroom. I'm like, yo, watch my records. Like, he's like, okay, cool. So I come back. He goes, I've never seen like any of the records in your box, man. And I said, that is the dopest compliment that anybody has ever given me. Because, as collectors, we're in our own world and we don't know what people have or what they don't have. But, for a musician to say that to me, somebody else that collects records, I was like, that's dope. And I mean, at that show, it was a trip because people were coming up, they were taking pictures of my records. They asked if they could like look at them and we're having conversations. And I'm
Wow.
like, yo, we're playing 45s. I'm like, you can't talk to me for that long. The record's going to end. But that is why I like to go out and play.
Yeah.
Any other reason than that, I'd rather stay home and just kind of be with my girls. I get comped when I go out to spin records. I'm paid or whatever, but that's not why I do it. I do it because typically at some point during the show, there's going to be people that come up to me and I see they give me this like nod, like they're like,
Mhm.
I know you just played that Idris Muhammad cut bread on 12 inch, man. And it's for the props like that. It's for those that come up and they're like, yo, man, that was such a dope
Yeah.
set. That's why I do it. Otherwise, I just stay home and do it behind me.
Yeah. Yeah. So I know that not you're also a part of Fraternity
Yeah.
Music Group
Yeah, that was
Records. Let's
crazy.
talk about that. How did you get
Yo,
involved? Tell
yo,
me all
so
about it.
I'm gonna say this, and I don't say this in like a cocky sense, but you gotta understand, like I came from nothing and the bottom with collecting records, and to have the opportunities that I've had, to say this isn't a movie or feels like a movie, I would be lying to you. I mean, the things that have occurred just from my phone, the names, the numbers, the messages, like it's a trip. And so the story about Fraternity Music Group goes like this. I find the Four Jades, Gee How I Miss You. And my God, I just play that over and over and over again. So naturally, I go to look to find it, not available. And it looks like it would be an expensive record. Like, I don't know what it is. I can look at like records, whether it's like YouTube or a Discogs page, and I'm like, ooh, I don't think we're going to see this one. Or it looks like it's going to be like a couple thousand. So in searching it, there's a couple different ways that I like to search, and I like to kind of write these scripts that will allow me to get notifications when a record is available across the internet. And I come across Fraternity Music Group Records. They pressed a version of For Jade's G How I Miss You. I'm like, yes, it's gonna be a reissue, but we got it. We got
Yeah.
it. Like the 45 is coming here. And I'm like, oh damn, it's sold out. But they had a 10-inch and it was clear with this green swirl. So I buy two copies. They get here. And inside the package is a bunch of other records. Somehow they were able to realize that the person that bought it was Waxvillain. And so there was a bunch of other records in there. So I reach out at the time to Fraternity Music Group and I end up getting in touch with the founder, Vic. And we had like a 3 hour conversation about the Four Jades. I mean, 3 hours, I kid you not. And at some point in there, I said, it would be really nice to reissue this on 45 with the original labels. He's like, yeah, let's do it. Let's do it. And so we end the call, and I'm like, I don't think it's going to happen. Right. And then I want to say like 2 months later, I get a text message and I see prints of the labels. And I'm like, oh, it's happening. It's happening.
Yeah.
Right. And then the next thing, maybe like 20, 30 copies show up in the mail. This is months later.
My
So at
God.
this point, we're putting together a plan. And I said to Vic, I said, this record is going to move. I guarantee you this
Mhm.
record on 45 original labels, we're going to be able to move it. And so now Vic and I are talking regularly. Um, we're talking about the promo release and the game plan behind it. I wrote the one sheet for it, kind of orchestrated all the marketing aspect of it, how we would promote it across platforms. And it comes the day to like release it, and I made sure that, again, paying everything forward, paying respect to those that came before me. I made sure that Nori, George, Wax Major, and a bunch others all got advanced copies of this. And when I did the one sheet, I wrote it myself. I acknowledged them in it because Four Jade's "Gee How I Miss You" was on a Gangster Soul Harmony compilation. Um, Everything I do, I try to always acknowledge and mention California collectors because of the role they've played in my journey. But we end up, selling it. I don't know, like 300 copies in like a
Oh,
week.
wow.
And Vic's tripping out. He's like, "Yo," he's like, "You weren't kidding." He's like, "The records are moving." And here's the thing that I've never said publicly. 95% of the records all went to California.
Oh,
All,
wow.
they all went to California for the most part. And so after that happens, and while it's happening, I'm trying to do my research. I'm trying to find the Four Jades. And I think that there's one member that might still be alive, but it's very hard to find the artists in some cases. And even finding them to get the message across to them is even harder. But on the heels of everything we did with Four Jades, "Gee How I Miss You," then came the Egyptians. And so what's special about the Egyptians release is that's the first, acknowledgement where you'll see Waxvillain on the back of the 45 jacket. It's you see my name on the Discogs page. And so that was kind of a moment for me to be acknowledged in that capacity because I started out taking pictures with records. Then I interview artists. I have the watch list thing. I'm starting to now go out. I'm not a DJ. I guess you'd call me a selector or a spinner, but I'm just playing records. Like I don't mix. I'm not trying to impress any. I don't want to be a DJ. I
Yeah.
want to be a
Yeah.
DJ. I'm not gonna. I'm too old to like learn
Yeah.
all that stuff. I missed
Mhm.
my window for that. So naturally, this evolution now of my association to a label, and so we do the same thing with the Egyptians. It's the same formula that we did for the Four Jades. That sells like crazy, and so now it's the point where Vic is schooling me on the record label side of things, and he offers this role to kind of be like A&R for the label, and naturally I was going to say yes 100%. And so what's really cool about all this is there's the third record that's coming out, and the third record, there's a story behind it. I don't want to reveal it yet, but it involves a California record collector, a couple. It's a very, very big record. It's never been reissued before. And so that's kind of like the big bang firework for 2024.
Ooh.
I cannot wait to, offer this record to collectors because the original is like a $2,000 record and it's not available very often. It'll pop in bunches. And so, again, to take a rare soul record that has, probably lived across YouTube, certain compilations, now collectors, new, old, are going to be able to add this to their box and it's not going to cost an arm and a leg. And so, that's kind of the cool give back with my work with Fraternity is finding these records that are either very, very expensive, not available, the condition isn't good, and to make them available again. So really meaningful work. I would say that I'll tell you this: there are other works coming out through Fraternity Music Group in the form of compilations. There's more 45s to come. I'm kind of hand picking these records that move me, and as long as we can get our paws on them, they will come out. And so I
Yeah.
think that's going to be something that will continue to go on and on and on. But my relationship with Vic, the founder of Fraternity Music Group Records, is very strong. It's very healthy. He's been like a mentor to me, and we talk often. I mean, it's crazy to think about my network and the friendships that have been established. Vic is a great guy. He does great things with the label, and I'm very proud to be a part of it.
For sure. For sure. I want to ask you a question. So, actually, that song, The Egyptians, Thanks to You,
Yeah, yeah.
recently came across it. And, when you say a song moved you, that
Mm,
one, I heard it and I was just like, I got chills, like
yeah.
chills. And not too many songs can do that to me. Like, there's not too many songs that can like move me. And when I heard that, I said, I don't know what this is. Who is this? Can you give me a little bit of history on them?
Yeah. So the Four Jades, I want to say it was 1971. These guys were in a suburb of Cincinnati, Ohio. And so it's Paul White and let me see here. Paul White, and then I want to say Richard Hinton.
Mhm.
And so the story behind these two guys, Paul White is still alive. Paul White is still alive. Mr. Hinton passed away a few years ago.
Wow.
I have found their pages on social media, their family members, and I tried literally everything I could to make contact with them because I
Wow.
wanted them to know that um, their uncle, their grandfather, their father,
Yeah.
husband, their record
Yeah.
was going to be reissued again. But I could not make it through to them, and that's always heartbreaking to me because it's kind of hard to raise the trophy and celebrate without them. But I know that I believe that I think it was Roderick Hinton. Roderick Hinton. I know that Rod has to be smiling down, knowing that there's a new generation of soul enthusiasts that are hearing this maybe for the first time, or maybe they've known it but they put it on the table for the first time in the form of a reissue. And so that is what really moves me to keep doing this. So these guys, they actually, I think they had just got out of high school when they cut the record. There's only two of them. The in-house band is a mystery though.
Wow.
And what's crazy about it is that the flip side is called Thanks to You, like part two. But
Hmm.
it's like absurdly funky, and it reminds me a lot of like something that you would hear or see in a black exploitation movie, or like a OST soundtrack, like really loungy. Like I imagine like go-go dancers, dark red lights, a smoke-filled room, the best dressed people, and that instrumental is playing there. Um,
Wow.
you know, I'm thinking about some of the other stuff about this record. There's one other 45 that the Egyptians released. I want to say the label is Green. I don't know what the actual name is. I wasn't able to find any copies, but this is for sure the one that's the silver bullet. Thanks to you. Side A, the vocal version is really what moves me. And again, if you think about the instrumentation, the way that there are those horn
Yeah.
stabs, the punchy horns, the group harmony that's like uber dramatic, that is the essence right there for me.
What
That's what the
really
sound is.
what really got me about that song is at the ending when he's like, the ending part of it. How does it
It's
go again?
heartbreaking. It's
Wait, no, it's
heartbreaking.
like wait, I can't think of it right now, and I'm always singing it. How does it go? Deeper, deeper,
Yeah.
deeper. Oh man, that is just like, oh, it took the wind out of me. I was like, wait, because you're not expecting that. Like you're not. It
No.
takes you on a whole journey.
And so like that is the charm to
Yep.
these lost soul records right
Yes.
there, is that they're singing about heartbreak,
Yeah.
this love. And I
Mhm.
believe, by and large, when these records were being made, when pen was being put to paper,
Yeah.
they were doing the best they could with the best they had.
Yeah.
And I love it. No, they don't make music like that nowadays.
Yeah. For
And
sure.
so that's what's so special about it. I mean, to think these gentlemen were teenagers and they went in there, and that this is the outcome of that recording session.
Yeah.
A lone recording session, mind you. It's not like they were signed to a label with a big deal and had, gigs lined up. I don't think they did very many gigs at all, to be honest with you. But talk about impact, huge and
Yeah.
relevant to this day.
Yeah, for sure. It kind of right now you were talking, it was reminding me of Café Canela.
Those gentlemen, there's this glow around them,
Yeah.
and
Mm-hmm.
there's something really innocent and pure.
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I'm articulating that the way that I want to, but I think they are two of the most special artists on this scene. And that record that they put out, my goodness, it's one of the best things to happen in a long time. One of my friends reaches out to me, like it must have been like midnight. And I get this DM and they're like, "Hey, do you know who this is?" I'm like, "Nah." They're like, "Please help them. Please, please, please." And I was like, "I like, I'm not Barry Gordy.
Yeah.
I'm the Walt Disney of this, but I'm not Barry Gordy." And so when I heard the record, I reached out right away.
Yeah.
And I'm like, Manny, I'm like, let's let LFG baby, let's do this. Like I was
Yeah.
ready to walk him to the doors of a label.
Yeah.
I said, I'm on standby to help you out. And man, their story, it's still unfolding, but it's beautiful. So I was sold right away.
Yeah, for sure.
Manny could have asked for anything. I would have moved mountains to try to help him. And so, that's where I think promoting the 45 came from, lining up the interview and just using the platform of 5,000 plus
Yeah.
followers to say, listen to this, look at these guys right here.
Yeah.
And, I couldn't be more, happier for them. I think their future is bright, but boy, that is one special duo right there.
Yeah. Extremely. I think they're gonna go very far. I really believe in them.
No
And I know
ceilings, no
that,
ceilings, no ceilings. They
yeah,
got it.
none. I can't wait. And we're super close by, you know that? Like we're an hour away from one another. Like,
Really? Are you
yeah,
like by
so
Coachella, Palm Springs area?
yes, that's exactly where I am. So
So in May, I'm gonna be out in Palm Springs on some
oh, we're meeting
business.
up for sure then.
We gotta all connect. Because I love social media because we can see people like this, but it means even more when you get to meet in person and shake
Of
hands and say
course.
thank you and everything like that. So yeah, for sure. We'll make it happen.
Yeah. So we're super close and I fell in love with them. Sometimes I don't know if you can relate. Sometimes you hear oldies and it's kind of like, and you're itching for something new. That's what did it for me.
Yeah, so when I first heard that, if you listen to the drums, it they're their own group, and it's their own work, but I could hear Joey Kiones's drums from his early music, especially with like Mango Hill Records. Something about the drums reminds me of Joey. And I would say that Cafe Canela, I would say that the Charities, those two groups stand out from the pack of modern soul. Like the distance between those groups and a lot of the others on the scene, it's not even close.
Yeah.
And that's that feeling that you're talking about there, where it's really like authentic.
Yeah.
Like whether it's Coal Mine, whether it's Penrose, or other indie soul labels, they're trying to emulate records from the past to a
Yeah,
degree,
exactly.
right?
Exactly.
And it's not just a sound that I think is easy to get,
Yeah.
right? So what they're able to do is really special, and I hope that they can preserve that sound. Now, the Charities are backed by one of the best producers on the scene today, which is Anthony Messino. And Anthony Messino is I would speak highly of him in the same vein that I do of Cafe Canela. They're very special human beings. There is like a glow around them. I've said that Anthony is allergic to hit records.
Yeah.
He couldn't make a regular record if he tried to. And so that again, that feeling that you're talking about, that oldies, that itch, I'm like, man, when they drop, I know it.
Yeah.
I don't need to
And
hear it. I
yeah.
just need to see A Messino like on the
Yeah.
label,
Yeah.
produced by. That's enough for me.
Yeah.
Cut the check. Let's go.
Yeah, definitely. They're awesome. Um, when you're not doing the music thing, when you're not on Instagram, what are you doing besides music?
Yeah. So this does consume a lot of time, and it consumed even more of my time in previous years. I would say 2024 has probably been the I've done it the least this year, if I'm being
Oh,
fully honest. Now, when I'm not doing this, I work at Microsoft. I'm a program manager, so that's a lot of my time, but I love that just like I love the music.
yeah.
So the truth is, this room I'm in, I probably spend 14 to 16 hours a day here. I
Oh,
kid
wow.
you not. I work a lot. I work a lot. I just ping pong between the music and my work.
Hmm.
But I've got a family. I've got, my wife. I've got a sweet little 7 year old named Ellie Francis. Every blue moon, she makes appearances on videos or in pictures. But I would say that those are the three things that I do. And um, you know the music, because it's always tied to my phone, like the longest my phone is ever away from me is like when I was at the dentist last week for 90 minutes. That's the longest I've gone without looking at my phone in like months, because I don't go to
Yeah.
bed until like 1 or 2, and then I wake up by like maybe 7. So those are the gaps when my phone is not like in my hand, or things are going on. I'm typically messaging people. I'm on the phone, trying to network
Yeah.
and break deals. But I do, I enjoy seeing my daughter, do gymnastics. She does competitive gymnastics, so we're coming up on gymnastics season, and we'll be doing that over the weekends with competitions. My wife is a rock star, and we just have a great unit. It's the three of us. Family first, family priority. I would say that work, probably they're all like a number one kind of thing,
Yeah.
honestly. So that's
How,
how I spend my time, though. I mean, I'll be honest with you. Like, I live this. Like,
yeah.
I live these things.
Yeah.
So,
How does your wife feel about what you do? Like with the whole music thing?
so it was actually incredibly hard. Incredibly hard.
Yeah.
I would say that it got better as I was able to kind of like take my foot off the gas. But year one, I did like 100 plus interviews in 12 months. I was unboxing records. I was doing the watch list, and so I would say year one was very tough. Um, and she's just been open to it as we've kind of gone. But I've like I said, I had to pull back, right? So it's not about like
It's
doing
like that
four.
balance, right? Just finding that balance.
Yeah, but so I'm not like a balanced kind of guy. Like like I'm.
Yeah.
Did we die? No, that kind of thing where I go 110%. Um, that's why I say everything is kind of like a number one. I have three number ones. I don't have a one, two, and three.
Yeah. Yeah. I know definitely for myself, it's also a challenge. I mean, well, it's a challenge for us because I do work full time as well. And
Mhm.
then, I'm a mom, I'm a wife, and then, just,
Yeah,
and then my husband didn't, come around until much later on, so, now he's like enjoying it and like taking interest, but definitely doing it on your own is challenging, not having that support for myself, it was definitely a
yeah,
challenge, but it also allowed me to grow and become more hungry because I didn't have that support in the beginning. And it motivated me to continue to grow and do more. I'm grateful now that I do have the support, and he helps
Yeah.
me out a lot by reaching out and doing that. So it's been super fun having him, including him into the Barrio Levodi podcast in the
I
back.
love that.
Yeah.
I mean, if you can make that work, I think it's great. I mean, I'll be fully transparent with you. I don't think she really knows everything that I've done. If I'm being clear with you. Um, yeah, I don't think like it's weird to her when people will come up on the street and say my name or want to talk to me. Um, like she's like, what? Like, but my daughter, so I will sing around the house. There's certain things, right? Whether it's, spinning around the group or Alone with No Love or the Egyptians. So my daughter will start to like sing like the chorus and hooks of these things.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's kind of special there, and occasionally my wife might have some fun with it, but I don't know that she really knows like the full magnitude of every like a lot of wins were celebrated in silence.
And
So
I think that's like, something that sometimes we go through. You know what I mean? Doing what we love to do. Sometimes we are gonna celebrate wins privately and silently. It sucks. It comes with
yeah,
it though. you know?
it's made me I think it's made me a more resilient,
Yes.
human being, and my biggest supporter is my mama though. Like my mom knows everything that's going on, and she'd be like, "Oh, you're getting close to 5,000," or she sends the fire emojis, and she tunes in to watch the live streams, and I always say, "Mama's in the house," but my mom has been really awesome in supporting me with everything that's gone on with Waxvillain. And I'm grateful for that.
Yeah, she's been your cheerleader since you were in
Day one,
basketball,
day
honey.
one,
So,
day one.
of course, she's
Yeah,
gonna be now. That's
yeah.
awesome. Out of your whole collection, Wax, what do you have like a special record that's like most special
Mm.
to you? That's like, for whatever reason, sentimental or
You know, the thing is with like the records, I would say that the ones, unfortunately, that are the most special to me, they're not necessarily sought after or valuable. There are records from my hometown in
okay.
Schenectady, New York. And when I first started collecting, Miss Goldie had really kind of put me on to like focusing on geography in certain regions. And so that got me to kind of go back to where I was raised
Yeah,
and start to look for records.
yeah,
And there's, maybe like 10, 15 records from upstate New York that I have in my collection. That to me they're really important. Not that they're valuable, but I just don't think that like if I lost them, I don't think I'd ever get them back. You know what I mean? Like
yeah.
I couldn't just go and buy them. But records that are special. One record that I really like is the JBC band Alone. I really like that one a lot. I have to, you know, it's probably got to be the Rock Candy record. This was like a really important one for me. To me, a true two-sider. I know the history with Dante Records. By way of I'm drawing a blank, but Kevin. His name is Kevin, and he's from DC. And when it comes to DC soul, Virginia, DMV, maybe Baltimore, Kevin is second to none. And so he was able to provide a lot of the history behind the label and the record. Um, if you don't mind, can I share a little story about this?
Go for it.
So there are three copies of this particular record. There's a white one, there's the blue one, and there's the yellow one. Now, the problem with the blue one is that across message boards and just collector talk, there are bootleg versions of the blue one. And it's said that it's very hard to distinguish blue, like a real blue one from a bootleg blue one. To the point that some collectors are maybe hesitant to shop the blue version. And so I remember when I bought this, I was like, man, how do I know if it's like real and authentic? And the first person I called was Noriega. It was like 11 o'clock at night, like, I don't know, 3 years ago. And I'm like, I got the record in the camera, and he's like, yeah, he's like, that looks real. And even talking to Miss Goldie. So I had confidence from them. But it wasn't until Kevin came on. He has a really deep knowledge of DC records. Like he knows. So what's cool about this record is that that was naturally one of the questions that I asked when we talked to Kevin. And essentially the person that would write in the dead wax, it was a certain person, and he always wrote the same thing, and he like signed his initials. And so he says, if you have this in the dead wax, you have an original copy. So I broke out my 45 afterwards, and I was able to confirm that yes, in fact, this was a real one. But I bought this record. So before we interview Kevin, I see this record pop, the yellow one, and I literally bought this just to confirm and compare it against the blue one. Both copies are authentic. So I would say that, Rock Candy, Dante Records, Alone with No Love is the 45 that is probably one of the favorite ones in my collection for sure. And it's not the sound that I described to you that I really love so much. I mean, I love the up tempo and I love the slowy, but yeah, this was a discovery early on, a different version of Waxvillain as a record collector.
Another question that I have for you is, um, think about a moment in your life that you've probably gone through a hard time. What
Mm.
are three songs that were your go-to that you had on repeat?
Mm. Three songs that I would play now to like kind of go back to that time essentially.
No, have you ever gone through something and then
Yeah.
what are your three songs that you would like ever been at a time where you're just like, I just need to hear this song to carry me through whatever I'm going through? What song is that?
Yeah. So it would likely be uh I have two of them, by the way, doubles. The Cruisers, Mink and Sable Mabel. It's up tempo, it's fun, it's got a nice rhythm. Playing records is therapeutic for me. I would compare me playing records to somebody that likes to go to the gym to work out.
Yeah.
After I do like even a 30-minute set, I'm really moved. So Mink and Sable Mabel, Alone with No Love, Rock Candy, and mm, the Jamel's I've Cried. Those are probably three songs that I would put on that, because when I listen to the music, it immediately changes my mood, no matter what.
Yeah.
And so that's why music has just been important throughout my life, because there was probably a time when, as a youth, I didn't know how to maybe to communicate feelings. I didn't know how to explain what was going on, nor did I know how to like harness and manage it. And so music was always that thing that kind of changed my spirit, my mood, and kind of energized me. It'll get me unstuck, and then I'm able to kind of move on. But that is what music does just in general for me. So those three songs right there. But Mink and Sable Mabel, that's a fun up tempo mover. It's kind of, there's a little humor in what they're singing.
Yeah.
So yeah, that would be the record that really moves me.
Have you spent out here in California?
I have not spun records in California, but I did come out to a show with the Mad Lads. So Santana Soul Radio brought me out to California like 2 years ago. And he picks me up from the airport. We then go pick up the Mad Lads. So now we're in this like big van. The Mad Lads are harmonizing in the middle section. I'm in the back, like, what's going on? And then Santana's like, yeah, we're going to Penrose to rehearsal. I'm like, we're going to Penrose, what? So
Wow.
we end up going to Penrose, get out the car. And I want to say it's like in Riverside, this big building that might look, I think it's like a YMCA. and you got to go through these doors, punch these pass codes, and then you're in the studio. And that was when I met Noriega in person for the first time. And so that weekend, I stayed with Noriega. We were basically moving the Mad Lads around, doing the rehearsal thing. And when I went to the show, it was surreal because now all the people that I've been seeing online, I got to see in person. And that was a beautiful thing
Yeah.
to be out in, I think it was Azusa, California,
Yeah.
and just to see the people, to connect, and the kind sentiments and words that they shared with me really moved me. But I'll share a story with you because this is a moment that really means a lot to me, and it's kind of funny. So Saturday, Noriega and I are going around. I think we get breakfast at Denny's. We got to go pick the Mad Lads up. Got to get them to sign some stuff. And we're on the freeway. Noriega says, "Oh man, like we need gas. Like we need gas." I'm like, "Oh, no worries, man." I'm like, "Look, right there's something right up there off the freeway." He's like, "You don't understand." And the next thing I know, we're pulling off the road on the freeway. We
Oh.
ran out of gas.
Oh my God.
So imagine this, right? Like I'm with my idol.
Yeah.
I'm with like my bestie, someone who I admire, to be stuck on the side of the road for what felt like an hour or more. I got to sit
Oh.
and talk with Nori. He was playing tapes, and that was a really special moment for me because we got to connect. And I would say that, Mike Noriega he's such a dynamic leader. I don't even know if he realizes like what a good leader he is. I don't know if he realizes, what a good teacher he is. And that's why I talk about kind of like seeing him as a mentor. Noriega would say things to me, and he wouldn't be like, "Oh, go get that record, go get that record," but he'd be like, "Go listen to this,
Mm.
focus on this genre." And I've
Mm.
always been a sponge. Anytime he said something to me, I'm like, "Yes, sir, let's go."
Yeah.
And so Mike has really taught me a lot, and he's empowered me to explore even further and beyond. Um, so I just, a lot of respect to him, a huge shout out to him. We're actually going to kick off, a series of the Vault very soon. I think we're going to do it, maybe November to December, just nonstop collectors and soul. But Noriega belongs, you know, when you see my name, his name should be there as well, because I don't know that I would be the record collector I am today without him and a lot of the others, but specifically him. And it's not like I got lists and I went out and I hunted these records. It was more understanding how he experienced rare soul in his youth, and how he came up and the things that he was doing to learn more, to
Yeah.
connect.
Yeah.
And I wanted to try to emulate that because, again, it's always about carrying on tradition. I
Yeah.
always wanted to make Noriega proud.
Yeah.
That was that it still is. It's something that's very important to me. And so, having that moment, in the car where we're just listening to music and talking was special. And I think that he was able to help mold and shape this guy who was so passionate about the music, who admired the collectors on the scene and really believed in everything that they had done, and to want to champion that further. So he did a lot for me. He did a lot for me.
And interviews is something that you do till this day. I mean, I know, but for somebody
Yeah.
that's just watching us for the first time,
Yeah.
um, you do that every when?
There's not so much a frequency. I like to do them about once a week if I can. There's times that I'll do one and then I might take 3 weeks off. It's just a matter of who I'm intersecting with at the time. I mean, there are so many interviews that I want to do, but I just don't have the bandwidth to do it. My professional career is most important to me, especially right now. So, I say about like once a week. I won't do more than one a week. So like I have one next week, the following week, the week after that. Um, a lot different than year one. I mean, there were some days that I would do two interviews in a day,
Wow.
sometimes three or four in the
Yeah.
same week. And that was fun, but that is a thing of the past. That was during the pandemic. And the other thing too, uh, after you do 300, sometimes you don't have like that fire inside. And so, I don't know if I will continue on in 2025 with interviews. I feel like we've done it, and at some point you've got to like zoom out and kind of assess what's going on. And I know that
Yeah.
people enjoy them. I know that the artists and labels appreciate the work, but um, 2024 might be the last year that we do the interviews, at least at the cadence. And when you're talking about social media, whether it's unboxing or interviews, you kind of have to have a steady flow.
Yeah.
You can't do it like once here and then 2 months later.
No.
So this could be the last year. I'm not sure. I think something that I always wanted though was I never wanted to be the only one that did this. I wanted to do this and hope that there were others that would feel empowered
Yeah.
to share their story.
Yeah.
Um, I think you ask different questions during an interview than I ask. And we ask different questions than some of my other colleagues on the scene that do this. And so I think having a lot of different people positioned to support indie artists, labels is a good thing.
Yeah.
You can't have enough people kind of championing this music, and Lord knows that this scene is very small, and it's very, very, very difficult. I always refer to it as breaking the ceiling. That is a very hard thing to do
Yeah.
in our position, in our line of hobby or what we do. But when we do things by committee, we go farther faster. And I feel like if there was ever a time to hang things up, it would be now, because there's folks like yourself that are carrying the torch and running forward, and you have your own style and flavor. Um, and there's other soul brothers and soul sisters out there that are not far behind us, or maybe they're miles and miles ahead of us, but there's others out there that can, should, and I hope would you know pick up maybe where I left off,
Yeah.
because this definitely can't be a forever thing. And I would say, back in the day, I would spend like a good 90 minutes preparing, if not more. For some interviews, like when I interviewed Aaron Frazier and Joey Quiones together, I leaned on one of my friends on the scene who's an actual writer to help me
Wow.
prepare for the interview. Now I'm doing it a lot quicker. And it's not that I'm rushing, it's just it doesn't take me the same amount of time to do the same job,
Yeah.
right? So yeah, I mean that's kind of how my cadence is today. It's changed quite a bit. I love what I do, but it's getting close to time.
Are you doing that because you have something new that you want to focus on, or are you just really want to focus on family right now and more of your
Um,
personal life?
so around the time that I started Waxvillain, I also had taken a new job at Microsoft. And in my mind, I said, it's one of these two things that are going to blow. That was my plan A. There's no B, there's no C. It was one of these things is going to take off. And so I knew that there was probably a good 3 or 4 year run tops, because it's normal. It's normalized. Like people expect to see me on a live stream interview
Yeah.
in some cadence, whether it's monthly, they just expect it. The
Yeah.
unboxing's the same. So it's lost some of the zing. That's what I truly believe. One. Two, people aren't home as much. Three, and most importantly, is that my professional career, I'm in a really good place right now. In fact, I never dreamed that I would be where I am career wise right now. And so I've always believed that you have one shot to make a first impression. And I would say about a week ago, my professional career progression changed drastically. I it's kind of like you wanted the shot, kid, you got it. And so I've got to make space between Don and Waxvillain. So I would say it's to focus on career. And I'll say this. I will always be in this space, whether it's interviewing, whether it's A&R work, whether it's my screen print sleeves. I will always be here in some capacity. But I think I'm at a point now where there's not too much more I can do without having infrastructure, without having, more budget to be able to do things. And I only want to continue in this space if I can make an impact. So I truly believe right now there's some sort of sign and message that I've been getting internally. I can feel it. I need to leave and I need to focus on this other space so that I can come back and do things with more impact, reach more people, and be more effective. I'm very good at like looking forward, like forward thinking and being like, okay, what does the next 12 months look like? What does 24 months look like? And those that are at the top of the scene, they know me. I can almost touch the ceiling. I'm not going to get further as Waxvillain, and I don't know that I can take people further. And so you have to be brutally honest with yourself and say, you know what, if it's not me, maybe there's someone else that can do it. Maybe this is it. And if so, it's been an amazing experience. It's been a great ride. I have zero regrets. I would do it again in a heartbeat. But I think it's time to step away in some capacity and come back stronger, come back better. Maybe it's finding a different way to do interviews or to unbox records or to help artists. But, I think that before I leave this planet, I would like to put out records, under my own label, which I would call Elfran Records after my daughter. Um, but even that, my name's on the back of records. I've
Yeah.
played a part with record labels, so there's not much more for me with what I'm doing, and I embrace that, and I'm grateful for all that I've done. But I want to really dig into career because I quit on myself a long, long time ago, and I never thought I would have these opportunities. I never thought I would grow as a human being the way that I have. And when I started to get this, I work a lot off of feelings. And so at night, I used to say to myself way back, like, what are you doing? What are you doing? Why are you doing this? I would keep going because my why would always keep me moving forward. And now my why is saying, but you love this more. You're
Mhm.
here. You've got to do it. You can't do both. So I'm gonna probably follow those feelings that I'm feeling inside, and we'll see what happens in 2025. I don't ever want to say never, or I'm not gonna like, say, hey everybody, I'm out. But I do think that things might slow down, and I'll be, doing things in a different capacity.
Sometimes there's season in our lives, there's
Yeah,
seasons. That's
yeah,
all it is. It's not permanent. And I really feel that your time isn't done here. I feel like maybe you just even scratched the surface because you know how you were saying like there's a spark in some artists, there's a spark. You have that spark.
thank
And
you.
I noticed it from the moment that we connected.
That
And
means a
I feel
lot.
like you may feel like that right now. You may feel like, hey, my time is done and I need to focus. And that's okay. It's
Yeah,
okay
yeah.
that we do that. It's okay that we step away. God, I went through the same thing with Barrio Levodis. I stepped away for, I want to say, 6 years from Barrio
Wow.
Levodis.
Okay.
And that's because of course my life was changing, right? I got married. My whole world was like, I don't know what I was doing. I know I got
Yeah.
married, and what do I do now?
Hmm.
And but there's beauty in that. There's
Yeah.
beauty in that time that you take away, and to regather yourself, regather your thoughts, to meditate, and really do internal work and see what's next.
Yeah.
And I feel like in those moments when you've stepped away, and you're in a season of solitude, that's when you start like getting all these ideas and revelations of, man, why couldn't I get these ideas, like, sooner? But I
Yeah.
really feel like your time is not done. I feel
That
like
means a lot. And maybe it's not. I think the
it's not.
difference is that I'm at peace though. When
Yeah,
sometimes we stop things because maybe we're not good or it's not working. I mean,
yeah,
I think there were moments, and maybe you can relate, but like I
yeah,
remember 3 years ago, like I lost like 15 followers in a row, and I was like, what's happening?
yeah.
And I'll tell you this, this has been one of my saving graces, that some people will be part of your journey and
Como,
others won't be part of your journey. And,
yeah,
and that's okay, because to see the ground that I've covered in the time that I have, which isn't very long, um, I think a higher power knew all along that I didn't need those people. And
yeah.
it's no shade or anything like that, but you really have to find your strength, and your why is what moves you forward
Ex-
and resets you. And maybe it's just the A&R stuff, maybe it's just keeping in touch with certain people in the community, but Rare Soul will always be part of my life. The people will always be highly regarded, and those that I consider friends and family. And so yeah, I mean,
It's just season. That's it. Just
it's just
I'm gonna take
seasons.
that as that. It's just a season. That's it. I'll
Yeah.
see you. I'll see you real soon.
I love that.
No, I really do feel that. I feel like it's just a season we go through, and I know what you're talking about because I feel like you know people don't. I don't think a lot of people understand how much it takes to do these
Oh my
interviews,
gosh.
to do this work that we do. I mean, I'm literally still sick with COVID. I literally was sick with fevers and chills, and I'm still sick. Like, as this interview was going on, I'm like doing my asthma inhaler and all this stuff. That's how invested we are into what we do because of the love for the rare soul music, and for the people that we have met in our journey. For me, it's important, and I know you can relate because it's like I do it for the cafe canelas. I do it
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
the sacred souls that their music doesn't die, and I'm going to continue to play it, and I'm going to
Yeah.
continue to talk about it, and I'm going to continue to put it out there and give information about it. Why? Because it's important to me, and I love
Yeah.
it, and I want our kids, I want your
Mhm.
daughter, and I want my son to one day be sitting across each other like this, maybe even doing an interview on each other about
That'd be
talking
wild.
about
That'd
their
be wild.
parents,
Yeah. Yeah.
um but that's why we do what we do, and there is gonna be people that come into our life, but even like seasons in
Yeah.
our
Yeah.
lives, they're there for a season, and then they're not, and that's okay, because the right people are gonna come into our journey and stay there forever. And that's one thing I've learned.
I agree with you. I'll say this. The best years of my life are when, the soul music came into my life.
Yeah,
When people like Noriega came into my life. And so this is a forever thing. It might not, like you said, different seasons, but the music will always be there. The lessons learned, the knowledge, all that. And I mean, it's kind of hard to hide all these records. I mean, I can't run too far from them. They're everywhere. And I wouldn't have it any other way.
I can't wait, and I'm not gonna let you either. I'm like, where are you, Wax? What's going on there? Well, Wax, I want to thank you so much for an awesome interview. I know we had some challenges with my illness. I'm so
No, it was
sorry
perfect.
about
It was
that.
perfect. You did
I
fantastic.
thank you. And I was nervous. You were the one calming me down.
No, 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 no.
But
You listen. You did great. You did fantastic. Like I said, I'm a fan of the work that you do. I love the way that you designed, the promo. I just want to see, you continue to flourish on the scene. I hope that it's easy. I hope that you don't have challenges in terms of, finding guests to interview, and I hope that you get farther than I do, quicker than I do. I don't. I believe there's two types of people. There's heroes and there's villains, and the villains say, "I suffered. I think everyone else should," and the
mhm,
heroes say, "I suffered. I don't want anybody to go through that." And I
yes.
hope that I know that there were people here before me that have done interviews and unboxings, but I hope that the path that I've made or I've tried to make makes it easier for those that also want to do it. And the one bit of advice I would say to anybody is all you have to do is get past the person in the mirror. And eventually, one day, when you look up, you are not going to see a ceiling over your head. You are going to believe wholeheartedly in everything that you are doing. And that's your why. And so, continue to do what you do. I never aim for perfection. That's not something that I strive for in this space. I think there's something about organic and how things happen naturally. There have been times that I've been caught off guard in interviews, as well as I do try to prepare. And that's what makes what we do what it is. Like we're not in a studio. We don't have $1 million equipment. We're doing the best we can with the best that we have. And that is the same way that the people did it who made the music that we love. And so
You're
I don't
honest.
I don't ever want to like leave that. Like, a lot of people would say, "Oh, why don't you get a mixing board? Why don't you get a microphone?" And I'm like, I mean, that'd be cool, but that's not how I want to run it.
Yeah.
You know, I run it low key, low tech. I spend all my money on records, not microphones, not wires, not mixing boards. You got to get it here on Instagram in this capacity. And if you don't like
Yeah.
it, it's not for you. But that's what makes it that's the charm of what we do in this
Yeah.
capacity. So you're awesome. Keep going. Don't the only voice you should listen to is the one inside your head. Don't let anybody sway you away from doing anything. And the whole basis, like the business side and the way that I run things, comes from my work in the corporate space.
Mm.
So one of my very first big projects was hosting this all-day event at Microsoft. I had never done anything like it, and I was nervous for that. And after I got through, I was exhausted. And I said, I need more practice.
Mhm.
So that was part of the reason why I started doing the interviews. Because I knew
Wow.
that when I did the interviews, I felt good and I
Yeah.
gained confidence.
Yeah.
So I do an interview at 4 or 5 o'clock. And the next morning, I come to work, I have an event. I had an hour of practice of speaking in front of hundreds of people at work.
Wow.
So I kept going back and forth between the interviews and when I would host events at
Yeah.
work and speak on stage in front of hundreds of people. And I also enjoyed watching like public speakers prior.
Mhm.
I always wanted to speak to a large audience. I just didn't know about what.
Mhm.
And so it was work and music that got me better at this stuff.
Yeah.
And it was an everyday thing. It was being comfortable being uncomfortable. Until like if you watch my first like 5, 10 interviews and you see the way I do the introduction and you see how I do it now, I didn't always do the "What up world, Waxvillain" in this like, energetic voice. It was like, "What up world, Waxvillain, Seattle, Washington, You already know what it is. And now it's like, what up, world? Waxvillain, Seattle, Washington. It's a different thing.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
that comes with time and evolution.
yeah,
And so you will refine over time. You will watch others and say, they're talking with their hands. I want to talk with my hands.
yeah,
Um, I am I am so comfortable in front of an audience, a microphone in my hands, that I can almost speak on demand. That was when I reached another level.
yeah,
We continue to raise the bar for ourselves,
yeah,
and those moments of whoa, I did it, turn into I'm doing it.
yeah,
And so I say that to you because you're seeing a pretty polished version of me, and that wasn't always the case.
yeah.
So just keep going. Like I said, I am here to support you, support your husband, whatever
Thank you.
y'all are doing
Thank
with
you.
Barrio Oldies. Consider me an ally. Lean on me, ask me questions. I'll give away my playbook if it means helping you.
Thank
So
you so much. It's
yeah,
truly an honor. I think with our podcast, one thing that I did want to kind of, because how you said there's a lot of talented people that have these amazing whether it's on YouTube, Spotify, or whatever, that do interview.
yeah,
They do interviews. One thing that I wanted it to be for us is I wanted it to be super personal. Super personal, to the sense where, like, I just want to know you. Like, if me and you are talking on the phone, we're FaceTiming, like,
yeah,
that's all. I want to know who you are, what you're doing, like, who are you besides who we see on social media?
yes, yeah.
I just really wanted to embrace that and get more personal. And I really hope that you felt comfortable to talk about the things you've shared with us today.
Everything.
Um,
Yeah, yeah.
but I want to thank you so much, Waxvillain, for being here with us today. Any last words?
I just want to thank you. I want to shout out, all the California soul record collectors out there. I admire you, and I hope that the work I've done has made you smile, made you proud, and know that I'm not here to take lead, to take over, but simply to put my hands on the wheel and make sure that it keeps moving in the right direction. To those record collectors that are new, keep going, keep pushing, keep exploring the records. Always be a student, and like I said to everyone, I'm here to support the community. So reach out if you have questions. But you already know what it is. Waxvillain, Seattle, Washington.
Thank you so much again. And I can't wait to have you back. I want to have you back.
We'll do it again.
We'll do
There
a
are
part two.
there's a grip of stories that I can tell you. I mean, we didn't even scratch the surface on like the actual stories of like there's so many stories.
Part two.
Part two.
We'll do a part two.
Alrighty.
All right, Waxvillain, thank you so much. That
Thank
does
you.
conclude episode number 23 right here on the Barrio Love OD podcast. And we will catch you on the flip side.